For the last 300 years, the assumption of Europe and North America was that you were going to have a mixed economy with the government investing in infrastructure, in roads, in transportation, communications, water and sewer, energy, and that the job of the government infrastructure was to provide these basic needs at minimum cost in order to make a low-cost competitive economy. That's how America got rich. That's how Germany industrialized. It's how Europe did. The aim of the Trans-Pacific Partnership is essentially to dissolve governments and to say the entire economy should be owned and operated by private owners, private enterprise, for short-term profits. There are a number of aims. One is to nullify any domestic environmental protection that costs money, to nullify any domestic protection of labor, to nullify any domestic attempt to tax natural resources or to tax economic rent. And the idea is to turn the roads and the transport system into toll roads that will be owned by foreigners and run at a high charge, to turn the internet, to turn the water system into toll systems, to charge for water, to charge for basic needs, and all of a sudden to impose really what is very much a neo-feudalism, rentier economy throughout the world of taking over the government sector essentially by the finance, industrial, and real estate sector, the FIRE sector. So you could say the idea is to roll back the Enlightenment and restore feudalism. That sounds like an extreme statement, but people don't realize how radical the investment agreements are on here. Any country that will try to, for instance, when Australia fined Philip Morris by raising the charges on cigarettes, Philip Morris sued Australia. So Australia, the government, has to pay Philip Morris the amount of money that Philip Morris would have made if people would have continued to smoke and get cancer at the existing rate. When Ecuador tried to sue oil companies for pollution, the oil company sued, and the country has to pay the oil company the amount of profit it would make if it continued to produce oil by polluting the land to an infinite degree. No government anywhere in the world that signs this will be free to regulate the environment, to tax private enterprise, and essentially the new buyers of the roads, the water systems, the sewer systems can use these as rent extraction opportunities. That means they can somehow charge whatever the market will bear and treat foreign countries sort of like New York City cable customers are treated. We have one supplier. I live in Forest Hills in Queens. We have one supplier, Time Warner Cable. If I want cable, I have to pay what they charge, and it has nothing to do at all with the cost of production. That's what economic rent is. It's a revenue above the cost of production, and for hundreds of years, the economics of Adam Smith, Ricardo, John Stuart Mill, Thorstein Veblen were all about how to create an economy that would produce everything it would cost without any free lunch, without any kind of unearned income. Well, the aim of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the European version is to realize that, wait a minute, the economy is all about unearned income. We want to be able to get economic rent, so essentially the rentiers' interests have backed the kind of junk economics that has fought back against classical economics, against the progressive era, and against social democracy to create a very right-wing government that they call free trade in a kind of Orwellian doublethink.
I'm speaking with financial economist and historian Dr. Michael Hudson. Today's show, the new global financial Cold War. I'm Bonnie Faulkner. This is Guns and Butter. Now, have these rulings by the World Trade Organization against these countries you mentioned, Australia was one, have these been enforced?
I don't know the details. I think, for one thing, The first process of enforcement is to spend up to $100 million in legal fees. It's almost impossible for a poor government like, say, Ecuador or even Australia to spend the legal fees that it costs to defend. Secondly, the decisions are made outside of government. They're made by the decisions as to how much governments have to pay corporations that are regulated as compensation damages are made by a small group of referees that are sort of a revolving door between acting as referees and working as lobbyists for these corporations. So I believe they were enforced in Australia. I don't know any of the specific day-to-day details.
Russian Prime Minister Putin proposed a partnership, or at least cooperation, between the West and the emerging military and economic partnerships in the East. Putin's overture to the West seems to have fallen on deaf ears. Why do you think?
Well, this is the same idea that has been made since the 1990s, even before Putin came in to power. The idea was that, well, Russia's willing to join NATO. The point was that Russia was under the belief that atomic war between the industrial nations of the world is now out of the question. They do face a common threat, and that is Wahhabi Islam funded by Saudi Arabia, the Wahhabi terrorism. Russia is concerned about the Saudi-backed terrorists on its southern front from Georgia, Azerbaijan, all the way through Central Asia. And the Chinese also are concerned about Wahhabi terrorism through the Uyghurs, and the United States. Wait a minute, Wahhabis, the American Foreign Legion. ISIS is the American Foreign Legion. When Hillary Clinton overthrew the Libyan government, the arms were turned over to ISIS. The military stockpiles were turned over to ISIS. The central bank resources were robbed and turned over to ISIS. When America marched into Iraq, it turned over essentially the entire the Sunni army and the armed forces and all those billions of dollars of shrink-wrapped $100 bills over to ISIS. So basically, although America nominally pretends to oppose ISIS when certainly it has to, when they kill Americans, basically ISIS is America's way of breaking up countries that decide that may threaten not to be part of the international dollar standard. And Russia had hoped that somehow the United States would see that this is a crazy system, that America and Russia and Europe can all get rich in mutual trade, and that if the textbook theories were right, if Europe, for instance, were to pursue its economic interest, it would see that it was a natural trading partner of Russia. That Europeans and probably Americans would go to Russia and try to build up the economy, because they certainly need entrepreneurs there. They certainly need a build-up. And instead of pursuing a mutual prosperity sphere between Europe, Russia, and the United States, the United States has pressed Europe into a dead zone of neoliberal austerity that is just shrinking the economy and carving it off to prevent any kind of prosperity for Europe, if this prosperity would also result in welfare for Russia or China. So the idea from the American side is, well, we'll treat Russia like we treated Cuba and like we treated Iran and Libya, and isolate them, and they'll knuckle under. But instead, obviously, Russia's much bigger than Cuba or North Korea, and China's much bigger, and instead of just surrendering to the American neoliberal economic plan, they've decided America's driven them together just out of purely defensive alignment, and America's brought about precisely the Eurasian unity that it set out to try to prevent.